We're going to hand over now to Keith Malcomson. Keith is a pastor. He's from Ireland, and he's currently heading up a church in Limerick. Keith has been in ministry for 21 years, and he became aware very quickly of the agenda that we're looking at today. So Keith has been following all of that. He's been putting his thoughts on YouTube, attracting thousands of views, and it's delightful to have him with us today. So over to you now, Keith, to explain a bit more about what's been going on. Thanks.
So good to be with you this morning. My subject I've been given here today in this conference is the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution, or as a subheading, the agenda of a globalist elite. And it's not just us calling them that. They call themselves a globalist elite. It's very apt this morning that I'm sitting here in Ireland's third city speaking on this subject. It is now said that Ireland is on the longest and the strongest lockdown of any nation in the world. And that's where I'm presenting this message on the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I've got a lot of facts I'm going to try and cover here. If I run out of time, I'll cut across the field. But please follow with me very carefully here this morning. In Matthew chapter 16 and verse 2, Jesus said, "Ye can discern the face of the sky." He was talking to the religious, those that had the Old Testament. You can discern natural signs of the sky, but you cannot discern the signs of the times. The times are actually a set time, a fixed time, or a limited period of time in our culture. The signs that he's talking about are indicators that reveal just before something is going to happen. Jesus is saying to the religious of his generation, you cannot even discern you can discern natural signs, but not the signs of the times. You don't know what hour you're living in. You don't know what's happening around you, and you don't realize what's just about to come. Back in the Old Testament, in 1 Chronicles chapter 12:32, we're told the children of Issachar, which were men that had understanding of the times. And listen this, if you understand the times you live in, if you know what's going on, if you know when you live, then you can know what Israel ought to do. You cannot know what to do in this hour if you don't know the time we're living in. Jesus again in Matthew 24, in verses 4 to 14, lists 10 general signs of the last days, very specifically. Then in verses 15 to 26, he lists several very specific signs. But listen to what he says about the general signs in verse 8. All these are the beginning of sorrows. The beginning of sorrows. Sorrows are birth pangs. When a woman gets to the time of her birth, just before, what are the birth pangs? They begin to speed up. They get closer together. They become more intensive. The mother says, I'm just about to give birth. It becomes unavoidable. You can't ignore it. Do you know what Jesus said? I have given you certain signs in politics, the social world, the natural world. And when you see them begin to speed up and intensify, you know that these are the beginning of sorrows. Well, let me take you to my message here this morning. The Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Let me show you where we are. And I'm going to give you all the evidence. You can decide what time that we're living in. I've got 7 points here. Hopefully I'll get at least 5 done this morning. But my first one is, if you follow, what is the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution? I want to explain it as simply as I can. And friends, I'm not giving my opinions. I'm going to their books. I'm not reading secondhand accounts. I'm not listening to YouTube videos. I'm listening to their words, reading their writings. I'm quoting them all through this message here today. So what is the Great Reset? The Great Reset, on Wednesday, the 3rd of June, 2020, less than 9 months ago, while the entire world, all of our nations, you and I, certainly me, were preoccupied with riots, with pandemics, with lockdowns. The World Economic Forum hosted and quietly announced the Great Reset Initiative. They held online through internet the Great Reset Summit. And this was opened up and presented by Prince Charles of Wales and the World Economic Forum founder and executive chairman, Klaus Schwab, during a virtual meeting. Now, on that day, they had several lectures. One of the lectures was by the head of the UN. Another lecture was by the head of the IMF and several other notable world leaders. They all came together, yet none of us knew about it. It wasn't on any news items. It wasn't made public. It was almost utterly unnoticed by the nations of the world. Just 9 months ago, in that release of the Great Reset, they released several adverts in which they push a red button, and that represented the Great Reset. What is the Great Reset? It is the pushing of a button, and when they push that button, they're saying, this is the answer. We're presenting the answer to all the world's problems, to climate change, to the economy, to this pandemic. We are pressing the reset button to get us out of it. This was the beginning of something major, and yet all of us had our eyes elsewhere. There was a smoke screen blowing across that we could not see what was going on. Well, at that same time, Klaus Schwab, in that same month, released his book. Look at the title. It is COVID-19, The Great Reset. What a title. In other words, he's defining what COVID-19 is. What is it? It is the Great Reset. What is the Great Reset? It is COVID-19. They're synonymous. In other words, what we passed through in the past year is the resetting of the button. This is it. Them pressing the button. In this book of his, he actually even gives a time scale. 9 months ago, he was able to say how this would go. He said this would continue until 2022. Beginning in March 2020, it will be followed by a series of smaller waves of the COVID that occur throughout 2020. And then over a 1 or 2 year period, gradually diminishing in 2021, like peaks and valleys. The first wave will be followed by a larger wave that takes place in the 3rd or 4th quarter of 2020, and one or several subsequent waves in 2021. It requires the implementation of strong measures in the 4th quarter of 2022 to contain the spread. And then he goes on. He is literally laying out a schedule. How could he have published this last June, telling us what's going to happen for 2 years? He goes on to talk about policymakers must be prepared to deal with at least 18 months to 24 months of significant COVID-19 activity, with hotspots popping up in diverse geographical areas. As we will argue next, the full-fledged economic recovery cannot take place until the virus is defeated and behind us. After COVID-19, we're going to face the economic crisis. That's what they're predicting. At that time, in June last year, after that conference, and them announcing, utterly unknown to any of us, announcing the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum activated its network of nearly 10,000 global shapers. These were a young generation scattered out across 428 cities, which they call hubs, and 148 countries. They were to begin going out over the next year to find the young experts, the young professionals in every field, and to bring them into, be a part of this Great Reset. This is massive, what we are talking about. That was in June. In July, I discovered this, and yet the media had been silent about it. In July, I began to investigate it, and I become shocked. I said, we need to tell our church, the young mothers, the fathers, the young believers, I need to warn them about what's happening. I become convinced that this is very serious and it's going to change our world, that this is big. And in fact, it's part of what I've always read in the Bible. In August time, I spoke to my church for the first time on this and tried to convey it. Then I felt an urgency. I didn't want to speak publicly about it. But in October, the Lord spoke to me very clearly. And this is what he said. He said, if you delay one more week and go in public, it'll be too late. Just one more week. I went public and done the first of 4 videos. 2 weeks later, the Great Reset hit the international media worldwide for the first time. I tell you, saints, God knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows when to speak and what to say. I'm telling you about something real that I'm caught up in here. The World Economic Forum was founded in 1971 by Professor Klaus Schwab. He was born in Germany in 1938, now a man of 82 years old. Each year since 1971, he has held a gathering of 3,000 people in a small village in Davos in Switzerland for 5 years every January. Those 3,000 people include the greatest leaders of our world. This is the globalist elite. It includes the members of the world's largest corporations. In fact, the world's leading 1,000 companies, if you mention a handful of them, they are always there. All the leaders of the global banks, IMF, the UN, the EU, and in fact, all of your nations, key leaders are always there. One of the young ladies, you may say, who is this Klaus Schwab? He's a nobody. Up until June, I didn't know his face, didn't know his name, still struggled to pronounce it correctly. But I want to tell you, this man is an important man. Klaus Schwab. Do you realize that Angela Merkel, one of the most proclaimed leaders of this hour, this time, she's just retired now as the leader of Germany. Do you realize who found her when she was a young lady when the Berlin Wall fell? Klaus Schwab became one of her closest friends, and he said he helped her in the realm of politics before anyone knew her. What about Biden? Well, believe it or not, Mr. Schwab again helped Biden start his institute in 2017 and is one of his best friends. I'm talking about a man and an institution that is affecting our world. All the top richest people, politically most influential, attend Davos each year. And this year in January, a few weeks ago, the theme of it was the Great Reset. That's the first half. Coming later this year, they're going to meet in Singapore in August. This is going to be their biggest ever convention and gathering, the World Economic Forum. And you know what their theme is? The Great Reset after COVID-19. We're talking about a massive thing here. The UN pulls behind it. Who pulls behind it? And in fact, they're greatly financed by the World Economic Forum and its leadership. And Klaus Schwab speaks every year at the World Government Forum. That's what the Great Reset is. It is the pressing of a button to bring in a plan. You say, what is the plan? Do you know the plan? Yes, I know the plan. Let me inform you here. It is called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It is a very carefully carved out plan, and it's called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Historians who write say there was only one industrial revolution, but Mr. Schwab knows better. He said there's a fourth, and he is promoting this fourth revolution. Let me explain briefly what they are. There's 4 industrial revolutions. The first one began in about 1760 and continued to 1840, and it was centered in Great Britain. It was marked by the steam engine and the creation of factories. That was the first industrial revolution, and it changed society and raised Britain up as a great nation. The second industrial revolution began in the late 1880s through to the early 20th century. It was marked by mass production, electric, steel, oil, Ford's production line, the mass production of cars, followed by radio, television, and telephone. All of this was the second industrial revolution. And you know, all of these things technically affected our world and changes our lives. The third industrial revolution actually began in the 1960s and continued to the 1990s. It was called the computer or digital revolution. Everyone got personal computers, or at least into the 200s, and gained access to the internet. That was the third industrial revolution. Now let me bring you to their plan. This is what's being introduced by the reset button. When the button gets pressed, this is what comes in. Let me tell you what the fourth industrial revolution that's going to change and is changing our entire world. The fourth industrial revolution is just an extension of the third one. It is the digitalization of everything. It is the fusion of different things together. It is connectivity. It's unifying all sectors of life. It is every area of society converging together and becoming one. Business, religion, politics, social society. This is the fourth industrial revolution. It is an actual plan, and they're implementing all their power. The UN is behind this, the World Economic Forum, the IMF, all world politics, all the greatest bankers, they're all pulling behind this. This is not something small. This is not created in my mind. This isn't my ideas. I assure you, this is what they are saying very, very publicly and openly. What's the fourth industrial revolution? It is the merging of the physical, digital, and biological, everything becoming connected. The fourth industrial revolution as a plan was released in the year 2016. Another one of Schwab's books here that he released in January 2016. At Davos that year, Vice President Joe Biden was the keynote speaker. He had been there, Davos, 9 previous times. But what is the theme of Davos that year? The fourth industrial revolution. He also released this book called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. Listen to a quote as he explains what this plan is. Quote, "It is characterized by a fusion of technologies that is blurring the lines between the physical, the digital, and the biological." Did you get that? The physical world, the digital world of computers, and the biological world of the bodies. It is being so blurred that you won't tell the difference. This is the fourth industrial revolution. Quote, "AI, artificial intelligence, internet, merging with human bodies. This is the fourth industrial revolution." I'm going to keep emphasizing myself here. This is going to ring. You're going to know what they have said, not what I'm saying, but what they have said. Klaus Schwab actually said it will happen fast, at breathtaking speed, like a tsunami. Everything will be digitalized. Again, he says, this is a technical revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, the way we work, and the way we relate to one another. In its scale, its scope, its complexity, the transformation will be like on anything else humankind has ever experienced before. We do not yet know, and this is him speaking, we do not yet know how it will unfold. But one thing is clear, the response to it must be integrated and comprehensive, involving all stakeholders, that means you, of the global polity, from the public and private sectors to academia to civil society. I'm explaining to you what they're saying. You're talking about all of these richest, most influential men and women in the world are pulling behind this plan. I'm going to convince you that this is a very live topic. I really will here. Let me come to the UK. Most of you here are in the UK. Let me get specific and prove how the fourth industrial revolution has been affecting your nation. You're rejoicing in Brexit. You're saying we have escaped the beast. We are out of the EU. You've been hoodwinked. I want to tell you, they could care less about that. I'm telling you, you've been hoodwinked. Let me prove it. The UK, in January 2019, 1/4 of the British cabinet went to Davos. 1/4. That's not accidental. Matt Hancock, maybe you know Matt Hancock. He is the British Secretary of State for Health and Social Care. Before that, of a department called the Digital, whatever that is. Well, he is a great supporter and promoter of the fourth industrial revolution. If you were to go on the British UK official government website, you would see on there that on the 16th of October 2017, Hancock addressing the all-party parliamentary group, and he speaks in that message on the fourth industrial revolution. This is 4 years ago. He is speaking to the most important political people in your nation about the fourth industrial revolution. And in that, he commends Schwab very highly. He says, quote, "Your work, Mr. Schwab, in bringing together, as you do, all the best minds on the planet has informed what we, the British politicians, are doing, and I'm delighted to work with you." He is very close. If you go on the government website for the United Kingdom, you'll also read about messages given that you know nothing about. The Agenda 2030. The British government is walking in line with Agenda 2030. You don't know what that is? That is a plan created by the United Nations to change our whole world and to set a stage that is unbelievable. It is the digitalization of everything. That's what the fourth industrial revolution is. At Davos in January 2018, Matt Hancock again speaking there in 2018. Do you know what his title was? Reimagining Political Policy and Policy Making for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Let me go to my second point here. Its roots in world history, and I'm going to be very brief on this point. Its roots in world history. I believe what I'm telling you now, that's coming out publicly, and it is coming publicly, I believe it's got its roots way back into history. I believe the Bible calls it the mystery of iniquity, and it will eventually lead to Satan himself revealing himself in a man. That is the mystery of iniquity. Satan manifest in human flesh, just like God was manifest in human flesh. That is the mystery of godliness. But we're talking about the mystery of iniquity that was even working in the Apostle Paul's day. You see, I believe what I'm telling you, this plan that's just about to be foisted upon our nations and already has been pushing in for many years, I believe it's got its roots very anciently. I could take you back to Plato, and I'm not going to do it here today. I could take you back to the French Revolution, that all of the ideology of wealth redistribution, of global government goes back. It was never meant to be the French Revolution. It was meant to be worldwide revolution. Well, you say, how can the roots of what is happening now go back for a long time? Oh, it does. It does. An awful long time. It has its roots in world history. Don't think what we're telling you here is new. It's not new. It's just coming public. And now is the time to implement it. In the 20th century, there was two great attempts at world government. The first was in 1919 with the League of Nations. Woodrow Wilson, the president of America, was a globalist. He wanted a one world government. He was a liberal Christian who denied the scriptures, who mocked the new birth. Americans won't like me saying that this morning, but it's a fact. He was a globalist. He wanted to lead America into a League of Nations. He wanted to submit the sovereignty of every nation to the League of Nations. This was the plan, but preachers in America rose up and so stirred up the politicians that the American people voted against it. The two secretaries for the League of Nations resigned within 2 years because they said it has no teeth and we don't have power over sovereign governments. Well, there was another second attempt in the 20th century, the United Nations in 1945. And now today, 200 nations of the world are a part of the United Nations. And yet it doesn't have teeth. The EU pulls behind it, the IMF, the World Bank, WHO, World Economic Forum, all of them have pulled behind the United Nations. And the United Nations has pushed a one world government agenda. Do any of you know what Gorbachev done after he retired from his position over the Soviet Union? Do you know what he done in the 90s? He traveled the world in places like America and Europe, speaking on a one world government. And listen, speaking on the merger of socialism and capitalism. Do you know that the UN from the 1990s began to speak about merging socialism and capitalism, democracy with communism? The UN from the 1990s. So I could say an awful lot, but I'm just showing you what I'm saying this morning has its roots all the way back to the 90s in the UN, all the way back to the beginning of the 1900s, all the way back to the French Revolution, and we could go on. My third point this morning, what do they want to accomplish? I'm going to tell you 3 primary things that they want to accomplish. I could give you 15, but I'm going to give you the 3 most important things here that they're trying to implement with the Great Reset. Let me say that again. They're not trying to do it, they're doing it. They're doing it. What do they want to accomplish? First of all, a new political system. I can prove it. The World Economic Forum website for July 2020, listen to what it says. Capitalism, as we know it, needs to be reformed. Now, let me say something here. Capitalism, socialism, communism, Marxism, they're all forms of economics, but they're also political systems. You can't separate it. It's impossible. In other words, the economic system of a nation affects its politics, or its politics affects its economic system. They're tied together. So now what you have, when they begin to say they're going to change capitalism, they're saying we're going to change the form of government. And it's a form of government that gives you liberty in your business or your life. As soon as they begin to intrude and want to change capitalism, what do they want to change it to? Because if you go to socialism, you're losing your rights and your liberties, and there's going to be more intrusion from government. That is socialism. That's what it is. So if they want to change capitalism, in capitalism is not perfect. I would not defend it. But you know what? You have freedoms, you have liberties, you have rights. Do with your money what you want. Do with what your property what you want. Have your own house. All of that's going to change if they change the capitalist system. This is the danger. This is where politics come in. They've disguised the language. Now listen to what the World Economic Forum says. It is time to reform capitalism, part of the new and global social contract. Klaus Schwab constantly talks about rewriting the social contract. So does the IMF, the UN, and the rest of them. What's a social contract? It is a document that actually lays out what a government is and what a citizen is. He's constantly, for a year now, said we need to rewrite the contract. Why? Do you realize you haven't voted for any of these that I'm telling you? You didn't vote for Agenda 2030. You didn't vote for the 4th Industrial Revolution, yet it's in amongst your politicians. We don't even know about it. And now they're going to change capitalism Are you going to be asked about this? Absolutely not. Let me go further in quoting directly from them. And this will shock you. On their own website, quote, capitalism and socialism will merge, become one. Again, the Great Reset means that capitalism and socialism will need to merge to create a productive and inclusive economic and social model. Wealth has become abundant thanks to capitalism, but it now, right now, needs to be more broadly redistributed, as the socialists have long called for. They're coming after your money. They're going to redistribute the wealth. And I assure you, they're not going to give you their wealth. They're going to take from us, I can assure you. They keep talking all year long about rethinking capitalism, reinventing capitalism, merging capitalism with socialism, stakeholder capitalism. Do you know why they use phrases like this? Because you don't know what they're talking about. Now I know. A year ago, I didn't know what they meant. Now I know when they talk about changing capitalism, they're saying we're going to change the government. We're going to change the form of government. You'll lose your rights, and we're coming after the money. That's what they're saying. They're saying we're going to create a different system where we bring socialism in, where you're going to lose rights, and we'll say, but it belongs to everyone. No, it'll belong to elite. An elite. They'll say, don't be selfish. Stop thinking about yourself. Think about the poor. You know what they are? They're thieves coming to steal out of your pocket. And it's people like you and me are going to suffer. It won't be the world bankers. It's not going to be the rich men, not the owner of Amazon. I can assure you, they're coming after us. Even the daughter of Rothschild in recent months began talking about inclusive capitalism. Why do they always use the word capitalism? Because they're deceiving you. They think if they use capitalism, you don't know what they're talking about. Well, we do this morning. We utterly do. It's the merger of business, religion, politics, all of it. This is the fourth industrial revolution. I'm talking about this is their agenda to change the politics. The World Economic Forum website, July 2020. You'll like this. Quote, to build back better. No, they're just about to tell us how we build back better. After this chaos, after this COVID lockdown, we're going to build back better after it. Things are going to change. Now listen to how they define build back better. Quote, to build back better, we must reinvent capitalism. Here's how we do it. This term build back better was only used by the World Economic Forum in connection with the Great Reset material. It's used regularly in all of their headlines going back to 2016. They've used build back better all of the time. Now, the past year, it's become a code word, a phrase, a slogan. Joe Biden was elected on the basis of build back better. Back in July last year, he used it. Boris Johnson last year used it in May, and again in September time, and more recently has joked about how they all use this term. In May 2020, the UN and the World Bank were using it. Last year, even Greenpeace were using it. Build back better. What do you mean by build back better? Oh, we're all saying different things. No, they're not. By build back better, they mean we need to change capitalism. This system that gives an individual a freedom and protects your rights, this is what they are going to change. This is what build back better. Welcome to build back better after the COVID lockdown list. Do you know what we're looking at? A changed world economic political system. The World Economic Forum, in a video on YouTube, you can see it for yourself, in June 2020, last year, they say on that video, quote, why we need to rethink capitalism. Then you have a video of the pressing of the reset button to change the world order of our society. Schwab also said in Time magazine last year on the 22nd of October, there was a whole article by him in there concerning the Great Reset. And listen again, quote, "A better economy is possible, but we need to reimagine capitalism to do it." Do you realize in this book on the Great Reset by Schwab, he talks a lot about government. He talks about the redistribution of wealth, rethinking how we consider government. He says here that from now on, government's going to get stronger. Its intrusion into business, into society is going to be strengthened. The government is going to have more power than ever before. And yet he says it is not the final end. There's got to be a higher power than that they hand their power over. Do you know, Schwab released another book at the end of, or was preparing to at the end of last year, and I noted its title and I wrote it down. This is it. And I'm telling you this because they changed the title of the book. Graham here has the book, but he's got the wrong title on it. The original title was The Global Reset, The Case for Stakeholder Capitalism, with a subheading, How Capitalism Works and How We Overcome It. That was the title last year. Do you know they changed it? They had to change it. And in fact, they canceled my book twice in the process of changing it. But that's the first thing. They're going to change the global political situation. A second thing they're going to change, a new economic system. Schwab says that this is the fastest, most complete financial shutdown of the economy in world history. It's never happened before. By the end of 2019, our world, the nations, were $253 trillion in debt. It was a record high. This is before COVID, just on the eve of COVID. Do you realize that was a 40% increase in 10 years? In other words, world debt increased in 10 years. It doubled in 10 years from 2008. Do you know our world has been sitting on the verge of an economic collapse and crisis since 2008, but they've tried to hide it and they're about to blame COVID. The crisis was already there, but they tried to fool you that they hadn't wasted your money, all your taxpayer money that you put in, and haven't destroyed your future pensions. And do you know what? We're sitting on the edge of a terrible crisis. It is a very serious thing. The World Economic Forum professor, Klaus Schwab, says the global economic catastrophe that we are now confronting is unparalleled in world history. He goes on to say we're about to face the mother of all financial crisis. And do you know what their answer is? To bring in a digital financial currency worldwide. We are sitting in a real crisis. A third thing they're going to change, a new humanity, a new civilization. In 2016, he released his book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. See in this book, now what is the Fourth Industrial Revolution? It is merging technology with your biological body. And this is my third thing I want to tell you they want to bring. They know exactly what they're going to do. The Fourth Industrial Revolution. In this, they talk about, there's a whole section here where they sent out to 800 of the world's top businessmen and who are at the cutting edge of technology, what is about to happen and change in our world. This was 5 years ago. And they lay out 24 things that are going to radically change in the Fourth Industrial Revolution. They call them deep shifts of technology. Number one, implantable technology. This is 5 years ago. What's the Fourth Industrial Revolution? Implantable technologies. What is the tipping point going to be? The first implantable mobile phone available commercially. In other words, what your mobile is going to be in your body, and it's going to hit the high street in 2025, 4 years away. By 2025, 82% of these experts said that's when it's going to occur. they go on to talk about implantable chips. Quote, the fourth industrial technologies will not stop at becoming a part of the physical world around us. They will become a part of us. Technology will envelop us. It will embed itself within us. Here in this book, which was only written or published 3 years ago, Schwab, 1/5 of this book is about technology going into your biological body, that they're going to join up the brain, your physical body, and join computers to that. And this is going to be connected to an economic system and will create another new virtual world. Do you know what I'm telling you? This is the fourth industrial revolution. I'm only touching on this very, very simply. Very simply. Do you know, I'm going to cut across the field here as I close. I was going to say to you about the Great Reset propaganda. They'll tell you that it's all about inequality and they're trying to help inequality. That they're putting lives before livelihoods, that they care about climate change. No, it's a Trojan horse, I can assure you. This COVID lockdown has destroyed lives. It is chaotic. It's going to destroy the economy. My fifth point is the Great Reset, a conspiracy theory. I've got one word, no. My sixth point, where does this fit into Bible prophecy? If you don't know yet, I don't know what more to say. Daniel chapter 2 talks about the merging of two forms of government. The metals are all forms of government. The toes of iron and clay are the merger of two forms, two different kinds of government. It's not the history. It's the 10 toes or 10 world leaders who are going to be on the earth just before Jesus comes. And these 10 world leaders are going to create a global government, 10 regions, 10 areas of the world. And in two different kinds of government, they're going to try and tie it together. They won't do it. Daniel chapter 7 says about these 10 horns that are going to rise on a beast, a revived Roman Empire. And in those days, the Son of Man is going to come on the clouds of the earth. Over in the book of Revelation, this beast with 10 horns are 10 great kings that's going to rise up out of the sea. It's going to implement a new political system, a new economic system, where you won't be able to buy or sell without a mark on your right hand or your forehead. And a world leader is going to rise up over that. My seventh and last point, give me 2 minutes. How should the church respond? How should the church respond? If you're a pastor and leader, you need to begin to preach about Bible prophecy. You need to preach this word. Do you know, all over our nations, pastors have become very silent. The church is utterly silent. This is the most desperate hour. This is a prophetic hour. It's a unique time, and the church is asleep. The pastors, the leaders, they're not warning the people. Can I stir every pastor and preacher? It's time to preach the coming of the Lord. Jesus is coming. He is our only answer. I am ready to meet him. Also, if you're here, you're not born again, I tell you, it's time to be born again. Are your sins forgiven? Are you ready to meet this Jesus? Is this your world? Is this all you have? Are you ready to meet the Lord Jesus Christ? Christians, are you walking with Jesus? Is your life right? Is your heart right? Are you burning for him? It's time to pray, time to evangelize. We've got a great commission. You say, what are you going to do, Malcomson? The world's falling apart. I'm going to go tell sinners about the Lord Jesus Christ. Every single week for months, I'm getting emails. Even this morning, an email for someone who's just come back to the Lord a few weeks ago and says, I need help. I need to speak to you. Every single week, I've got new Christians saved 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and they're on fire for the Lord, saying, I want the word of God. I want to live for Christ. I want to tell people about Jesus. And that old backslidden church that's played games with Bible prophecy, now the cover is pulled off. They are Laodicea. They play games. But I want to tell you, this is it. God bless you here this morning. I've got too much to say. Hopefully haven't overcrowded your brain. But God bless you, and see you a little bit later. I'm going to hand back over to my friend Colin now. God bless you.